Hi, in this video, I'm going to explain the concept of formatters. So formatter is basically a binding feature which can be used to manipulate the values while we are displaying the data from the model to that of the UI elements. Now, when we consume the data, what we basically do is that we trigger the OData service, and whatever the data that has been written by the OData service, we are going to put it into the model. And then from the model, we are going to do a binding to the control through which we are going to display the data from the model through to through the control. So we basically perform a binding between our model and our control, where the data from the model is copied over to the control and it has been displayed on the UI. Now, in the example that we have did earlier, what I have done is that I have displayed the sales order information over here. So if you look at this, here we have displayed this life cycle status information, where you can see that the status has been displayed as either C or P. Now, for an end user, it would be difficult to know what this value C or P represents. So C stands for completed, P stands for in process, and N stands for new. So these are the different status that we have. So since this would be confusing for the user to know what value is being represented over here, what we are going to do is that while this value is being displayed in the UI element, I'm going to format this value and I'm going to display the detailed information about this. Like if it is C, I'm going to give the value as completed. If it is P, I'm going to give the value as in process and so on. So the way the formatter works is that this formatter method will get executed right before assigning the values. So when the data from the model is copied, when is passed on to the control, the formatter method will be executed before copying the value. And here, whatever the value that comes inside this, that will be imported, and whatever the value that I'm going to export out of it, that will be returned. For example, let's say for in process, the status comes as P. Now, this formatter method will be executed, and in this method, I'm manipulating the value to in process. So the value that will be displayed in the control over here would be in process. So basically I'm stopping before the value is getting displayed. I'm manipulating the value and then I'm sending that value to the control. So we will see how we can achieve this formatter functions. Now I have displayed my sales order lifecycle status over here. So I'm going to assign the formatter function over here with which I'm going to manipulate these values. Now the formatter is something that I can implement in a couple of places. For instance, I can write my formatter logic inside my controller itself. For instance, I'm going to write my formatter logic as, so I'm going to use this naming convention format status, and this is going to be the function. Now the formatter function, what it does is that it basically brings in the value that comes through the binding. So here it comes through this binding for this lifecycle status. So the formatter function will import this lifecycle status. So I'm just going to add this status over here, which the formatter function would import for me. And here I'm basically going to do a check that if the status that is imported is going to be C, then I'm going to return the value as completed. Whereas else, if the status it returns the value as P, then I'm going to return the value as in process. Likewise, I'm going to add one more condition here, where I'm going to say else if status is equal to N, then I'm going to return the value as new. So these are the different values that I'm going to return. So I'm going to import the value of the state status and I'm going to check accordingly and I'm going to return this values. Now to assign this formatter function, what I'm going to do is that in the simple binding, we have only assigned the value to it directly. We have specified this is the location where the data should come from. Now that I'm going to give more information, we have to clearly specify that what is what. So I'm going to specify that this is a path, which means this is a location where the data is to come from. Then I'm going to tell the system that this is a formatter function that you need to execute to format the values. So since this method is directly available in the controller, I'm just going to give a dot over here specifying that this comes from this same controller. So whatever the lifecycle status that I have, that will be imported into this formatter method within which I'm manipulating this values. So for now, I'll just put a debugger here and I will submit the changes. So I'll start the debugging. Now, what will happen is that when the data is getting assigned over here, for each and every value, it is going to go to this formatter function where the system is going to import that value for that particular row, which is going to be later on modified according to the status. So since the status is C, I'm returning the value as completed. Likewise, it gets executed for each and every row. So where now the value comes as C again. The value comes as C again. C, C. Okay. So I'll just disable the debugging and I will execute this. So now you could see that whatever the status that we had as C, those values has been marked as a completed. For example, if I'm going to search for the value 001, then we might find more record where you could see that whenever the value is P, it gets displayed as in process. So in this way, whenever the value is going to assign through the binding, I'm going to stop in the middle where I'm going to format the value and I'm going to display the values accordingly. So in this situation where I have shown you that I have implemented my formatter function right in my controller itself. Now there could be certain situation that whenever I'm going to select this, I'm going to display the same information as a header over here in the detail screen, and I'm going to display further more information. So when I'm going to do that, I will have to implement the formatter method once again over there. So to avoid that, I wanted to create this formatter function as a separate object so that I can reuse it in locations wherever I wanted it. So what I'm going to do is in the util folder, I'm going to create one more object where I'm going to call it as a formatter file. So I'm creating a JavaScript file called as a formatter.js, and here I'm going to call this sap.ua.define. And this time, unlike the previous instances where I have used it, I was creating the instance of an object. So I'm basically going to inherit a class and I'm going to create a new one. So I had to tell the system that this is what I'm going to create. Whereas in this case, I'm not going to do that. So I'll not have to tell that system what I need to, what I'm creating over here. So I have just skipped the first parameter, and whatever the resources that I wanted to load later on for formatting, like when I wanted to do a date formatting, I will need the function of this date formatter to be imported. So in those cases, I will import this date formatter and I will do it. So that is something that I will extend when I do this detail view. But for now, what I'm going to return out of this is that I'm just going to return an object which is going to contain the methods which is needed for my formatting. So I will just take this method which we have declared inside the controller, and I will put this method into my formatter. So likewise, whatever the other reusable method that I wanted to create, I will create it inside this file, and I will reuse it from this particular location to wherever the places I wanted this formatter to be available. So I just set status value. Likewise, I'm going to create one more formatter function where I'm going to say format state is equal to function of, where it is going to import the same status value, and just for these conditions, I'm just basically going to specify what it should return. So basically what I'm going to do is that for now we will comment this. So basically what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add this formatter function to this text column where I'm going to format this lifecycle status and I'm going to display it. Now that I have created this formatter as a separate file, what I need to do is that I have to import this particular file into my master controller in order to make use of this formatter functions. So I'm going to add this one where in the sales order application in the util folder, I have this formatter.js file. So generally we don't give this extension .js. Then I import this with the name formatter. So whatever the value that I have imported with the name formatter, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add it over here as a global object where I'm going to say like underscore, where I'm going to say like underscore formatter is equal to whatever is the formatter value that I have imported. So whatever the value that I import over here, that I put it into a local private variable for this particular controller. Then inside this view, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to specify the path as underscore formatter dot, because now I know that Underscore formatter is the object that contains the formatter instance within which I have this method format status. So that is what I have specified over here as under dot represent the controller. Inside that I have this formatter, and inside this I have this format status method which need to be executed. So likewise, what I'm also going to do is that for this object, there is another property called as a state, which accept the value as either success, error, or warning. If it is success, the value will be displayed in green. If it is error, the value will be displayed in red, and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more formatter method here where I'm going to display the status accordingly. So I'm taking this lifecycle status value, and accordingly I'm going to format this state, where what I'm going to tell the system is that if the value of the status comes as C, then display it in green color, indicating that it is completed. So I will be giving this status as success. If it is in process, then I will give it as warning. And if it is n, then I will give it as error, indicating it in red color. So I have used a couple of formatter function here, whereas one formatter function is used to get the status value and format it as a text and give it to the text information, and other one is used to take the formatter value and give it as a state info, give it as a success state, either success, error, or warning. Then in the controller I have imported that value and I have put it into a private variable, from where I have referenced it in the view controller. So I will submit these changes, and I will reload my application. So now you could see that both the formatter function has been executed, where one formatter has converted this value and the other format has assigned this status as either in green color or red color. So if I search for 001, I will get more information, where you could see that in process has been displayed in kind of an orange color. And if I had any application, any sales order with status new, then that would probably be displayed in the status red, as I have indicated with that of an error. So in this way we are basically going to do our formatting. So just by creating this formatter as a separate file, I can basically reuse this formatter. Suppose if I'm going to create one more view, in that detail view also I can import this formatter and I can reference to this particular method. So that is all about the formatter. And one more thing, if you wanted to know, like um, here I am just taking only one individual values. Suppose if I have a requirement that I wanted to display a full name, where the service returns me the data as first name and last name. So in this case I wanted to import both this first name and last name value into the formatter function, so that I can concatenate this and I can display it as a full name. So whenever you wanted to achieve that, what you can probably do is that you can import both the values as a pots binding. For instance, you can here I have specified as a path, indicating that I'm passing only one value. So instead of that, what you can do is that here you can specify as pots. So here I can specify as pots, and I can pass the value as an array, within which I can tell the system that what are the values that I'm passing. Suppose if I wanted to pass gross amount with this, then I can pass this gross amount like this. So in this case, with a parts binding, I'm passing more than one information. So what will happen is that inside the formatter function, say if this is the formatter function for this, the first parameter will take the first value and the second parameter will take the second value. So by putting in that particular sequence, you will be able to pass more than one information. So for now I'm just resetting it to the previous one, and I will also submit the changes as well. So that's it about the formatter, and in the next video I'll be doing this sorting functionality. So in case of formatters, I need not adjust anything from the backend system, because I actually had no need to go to the backend service to manipulate anything over there, as I'm just manipulating the value from the UI itself. Now we will see how the sorter function has been executed and how we are going to manipulate that. How what are the changes that are required in the backend as well. So this we will see it in the next session. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.